no matter what industry you're in, no matter what business you're running, you're in the people business. This is what I've really come to learn. Yeah. So, and 99% of the time, you're not even selling what you actually think you're selling. You're selling a feeling, you're selling a result, you're selling a destination, but you always have to remember who you're selling it to. Because bottom line is, if you can't speak to a specific type of person, you're not going to win, no matter how good your product or service is.
All right, we are live for another episode of Agency Growth Engine, and I had to make sure to get that name right because I have a special guest today. I have my friend Derrik that I actually do another podcast with, but it's not that podcast. This is a different podcast, and this one's exciting because usually Derrik asks me questions on the other podcast, and I answer those. So I kind of show up kind of as the guest and go into that situation. And today, Derrik's the guest, and I'm so excited for this because I met Derrik very early on in his entrepreneur journey. I believe you were 18 years old. You were just getting your agency off the ground, and you were kind of navigating everything, and you've blown up since then, and you continue to grow. So I'm excited to have you on. Derrik, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about your agency and what you do for the marketing world?
Yeah, of course. First off, thank you so much for having me. This is it does feel weird because usually I am the one asking the questions, and I've never been a guest on a podcast before. But my name is Derrik. I'm actually 19 right now. I'll be turning 20 next year. My company's called Mirrormediamarketing. So we specialize in we work with content creators and podcasts, and we help them take the long form stories and make them into short form stories, into clips like this, and this, super optimized for TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts. And I could not be more grateful to be in the line of work I am in because I am literally living my dream life every single day.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so when we met, when did we meet? You were 18 years old, right?
Yeah, we met when I was still 18, like last year in like January or February.
Okay, and I'll tell a funny story. So when I met Derrik, he was like, "Hey, let's do this other podcast. I got this idea. I'll do all the editing, and you show up, and I'll ask you these questions, and it'll help my agency." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Tell me a little before I go into like a partnership on a podcast. Tell me about your family. How many kids do you have?" And Derrik's like, "How old do you think I am?" And I'm like, maybe like late 20s." And he's like, "Gary, I'm 18 years old." And I was just absolutely, my mind was blown that you were that young and that you were doing the things that you were doing. And so when you met, what were you at MRR wise when we first met? Do you remember?
Well, I mean, I was a fan of your content on TikTok before we even officially met, before I joined the early renditions of what's now the Agency Growth Engine Mastermind. So you guys check that out if you haven't already. But man, if I had to take a guess, if we met around then, I was maybe at like 8 to 10, maybe. I was just starting to get a couple of my first clients, just significantly transitioning to what my business looks like today. So between 5 and 10 is kind of where I was at the time.
$5,000 and $10,000 MRR. So you had a client or two basically. Yep. And now where is your agency at now?
Yeah, I mean, this month's going to be closer to the 30 mark, but on average, we're going to float anywhere from between 23 to 28K and working to get above 30 and get to 50. 50 by the end of the year is really our goal, and we have a lot of changes that I'm making to make that happen. But yeah, 23 to 30 is that ballpark now.
That's awesome. And I always tell everybody 50 because it sounds better, but and you're going to get there soon. So just keep talking about it until it happens, right? So
yes,
so tell me a little bit about that journey of first starting out. Like what you were an entrepreneur early on. So I kept trying to dig into your origin story, and every time you're like, "No, I started a business at this time. I was shoveling snow at this time, and then I was doing, I was selling clothes at this time." And so you have all these entrepreneurial outcomes, but tell me at the beginning of your agency what that was like.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, I'll give it a little bit of a backstory if I could on kind of the early days. So I always knew, and it sounds crazy, and people might think it's crazy, but since elementary school, not that I was going to be, an entrepreneur, but that I always thought a little bit differently than my classmates and peers. I always questioned everything. I was always like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I sitting in art class, putting this stuff together? The teacher's grading me on my art ability, like stuff like that. And I never understood why until as I got older, I was like, wait a minute. None of this stuff really matters to me because I know I could do this and I'm really good at this. And this is what I like to do. And why should I care what that person says or thinks, right? And that's kind of where this all started, where at about 13, 14 years old, I started drop shipping. A couple of drop shipping stores, 14 years old, freshman in high school, a bunch of drop shipping stores. Like, Dad, can I borrow your social security number to start a drop shipping store so Shopify can let me accept payments? Made no money, lost a lot of it. Started a clothing brand called Innovating Apparel, ran that for a couple of years, and lost a lot of money as well. And it was all a stepping stone to get me to where I am now, of being in the line of work that I'm in now. I hope that answers your question as like a brief backstory. But
Yeah, I would love to hear like how you started your actual agency, though. That's the part I think that will
of
be.
course.
I love all that other stuff too, because drop shipping's tough, right? That's a tough business. Clothing's even harder. Like the next hardest after that would probably be like opening a restaurant or something like that. And so it's just like you did the hardest things, and then you said, okay, I'm going to open an agency. And just walk me through like what happened. Like, why did you start an agency, and then walk me through the beginning stages of that.
Of course. So when the thought of starting an agency first crossed my mind was 2020. I was actually living in an RV at the time with my family. My family had a company called, and they still do, Glampers Camp. We were renting these RVs out, and I was working for my parents doing that. And I sat there, I was thinking, okay, I have these big goals and dreams. What do I need to do to get there? What's a business model that I could use to get me there? And I thought I need to start a recurring model of recurring revenue. So what about a marketing agency? Literally that day in the camper at the kitchen table, I went on Canva, drafted up logos, drafted up names, and put a play on my last name in it. Mirochnik is my last name. So Mirrormediamarketing actually has my name in it. Most people don't know that. So that's a little bit of a tidbit.
I didn't know that.
That's literally how it started. I just decided one day I want to make money. I just made a name that I thought was cool. And I said, okay, what do I want to do to make money? My aunt was interested in services. I went there for $150 a month. I made posts for her and posted stuff on Instagram. That went silent for a year, moved to Florida, and then I started working with local businesses to blow up their TikTok pages. And that was the start of my agency. So, I mean, to answer your question.
After your aunt, how'd you get your first client?
Yeah. Crazy story. My dad's truck broke down when we moved to Florida, and we had to get it fixed, and it was in a very expensive repair. And the local mechanic that we went to fixed it, and then ended up trying to charge my dad like $5,000 more than what he initially quoted him. So my dad and I was there, and we got really upset, angry, argued back and forth for 3 hours. And the end of the conversation, the guy somehow says to us, yeah, I'm actually going through a little bit of a rebrand. And my dad goes, oh, my son does that kind of stuff. I don't do that kind of stuff. I have no idea what my dad was going on, but I got to back my dad up. And if this is an opportunity, I'm going to take it. I completely make something up. Next thing I know, a week later, I'm at a sales meeting with this guy, this local mechanic who just tried to completely rip us off, like on a high level. And next thing I know, I sign a $3,000 6-month contract at $500 a month to make short form video for this guy. At the end of the 6 months, he's got 60,000 followers on TikTok. And I realized I had a skill set that I could actually, I know what to do here, and I could monetize this on a big level. That's how I got my first client. It was a big accident that my dad kind of said something, and I made it work.
It's funny because I always tell people, don't fake it until you make it, right? That's not a good attitude to have. You just want to be vulnerable and be real. But the problem is, the reason that so many entrepreneurs really struggle with that don't fake it till you make it is because until you get your first client and until you get some revenue, you're bringing something into existence that never existed before. And you are making something out of nothing, which is crazy to most people. Most people will say, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing to do. And so a lot of times it makes us as entrepreneurs seem a little bit crazy to the outside world. And until you land that first client. So now you got that first client. How did you parlay that into the next client?
Yeah. It's always been a big thing for me, even to this day, of getting sales, right? How do you do that? The biggest way that I think is honestly the most easiest thing for anybody to start is cold outreach, whether that's door-to-door sales, cold calling, cold email, cold messaging. And I knew that to do the things that I want to do in life, I have to overcome my fear of doing that. So I literally just got up and went door to door to businesses in my area every day and said, hey, are you interested? Look what I did for the guy down the street. Hey, are you interested? I did it every day. And I went to as many stores as I possibly could that I felt would be able to afford my services until I landed my next client after about a few weeks of doing that, which was a bagel store. We actually worked together for 12 months, grew them to nearly 50K on TikTok. They were my first client to pay me over $1,000 a month too, which was awesome. That was a big jump from $500 a month to $1,000 a month, but really just pounding the pavement, going door to door, talking to everybody, getting rejected a million times, and just still pushing through sales meetings door to door.
That's awesome. And so where are you at now with your company? What are you looking forward to? What are you working on inside of your business right now?
Yeah. I'm really looking to solidify our position in the industry in terms of, we've always been innovators. Everything I've ever done with this company specifically has always been paving a new path that hasn't existed before. We were literally one of the first and only people to offer podcast clips, but not just basic video editing, like storytelling. And you actually were the ones who helped me see that in terms of our positioning in that way. So for that, I'm very grateful. And then, longer term vision and what I'm trying to build out is, hey, how can we take the skill set we have now? Right now, we're really good at short form clips. We're really good at blowing stuff up online. We're really good at, editing. We have that skill set down. How can we take the strategy, the editing, the storytelling, combine it into one and charge more for it? And so that's where I'm coming up with, hey, what if we establish podcasts for businesses like you're doing with Agency Growth Engine, Dental Marketing Theory, Dental Rift, and we want to establish the infrastructure. We basically want to reach the Garys of the world before you ever even started your podcast in the first place and say, hey,
I would have loved that. I would have loved if you were there to do that for me.
Exactly.
And I actually looked all over the place. Yep. There wasn't people. There was people who technically kind of helped you set them up, but that was it. It was like, here's how to set up. Even setting up my camera, it was like, okay, I got my camera set up, but now my lights aren't right. And it's like, I had to go and learn about aperture and like lenses. And I really didn't want to waste my time doing that because by the time I was done with that, then I had to set up my microphone. And then my microphone had a buzz in it. So I'm like reading blogs online and I'm going, oh, maybe it's my AC or maybe it's my, it's my electronics in my house, or I have a mini fridge in my office. I better take that out. It was none of that. It was a bad cord that I had to change out. You know what I mean? But I spent weeks trying to fix that before I launched the podcast. Then I had to learn how to use a board. Then I had to use the video. And then we were using Zoom. And Derrik, Zoom drove me nuts.
I'm sure.
Because I'm literally like yelling at people. I know it wasn't at this quality. I watched it. Why are we posting this quality? If you go look at my first podcast, they're dark, they're granular, and I couldn't figure it out until finally I Googled it. Like I was asking questions and someone I think told me actually, and they were like, oh yeah, no, Zoom always compresses the video. It's not made for podcast. And so that's where I found Riverside. And it's just like, it took so much. It took 3 years for me to get this room. I have like a podcast room that I have in an office to build it because of all those iterations and changes. If someone would have been able to be like, hey, I'm going to do this for you, that would have been amazing.
Yeah. And we really want to go one step further. We really want to make it so that these people, these entrepreneurs, these companies, they show up at a date and time and they don't even need to think about what they're going to talk about because it's there for them. Right. In terms
so you're going to do guests for them as well?
So not just that. Our whole thing is we have to meet with them first. And I've been building this out, right? We have to meet with them first. Say, hey, what is your goals with this? And I've outlined this and we've spoken about this. A podcast has two things, a goal and a purpose, right? The goal of the podcast is selfishly what, as the host and as the person creating the show, you want to accomplish with it. For some people, it's more revenue, more leads, just straight attention, establishing themselves as the authority in the industry. Those are the common things that we see and we hear. The purpose is what takes it to that next level. Why should somebody listen to your show, right? What's the purpose behind it? It's great to understand your goal with it selfishly, but if you don't have a purpose with it, it's never going to work. So what can your purpose be? In your case, right, with Dental Marketing Theory, to share dental tips with people in the industry to gain awareness for the industry. Again, that might not exactly be it, but that's just an example of stuff like that. Basically breaking down and understanding how can you actually provide value to your listeners to then accomplish your goal selfishly. So those are the two things we try to establish. So not just bringing on guests, but, a question and answer show, like an AMA, ask me anything.
Yeah. So that's what I want to start. I want to flip one of my dental marketing theories every month. I don't know if we talked to our team about this or not. I can't remember. I have it in my notes, but I want to every month do a Q&A. So take all the questions that we think are going to be hot and shorts and just sit there and just ask me those questions and then cut them into shorts.
Yep.
You're thinking about doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah. And the whole point is we want to put people in a direction from the beginning of like, hey, what's the best show that aligns with your goals and your purpose? For some, it's a guest-driven show. For some, it's a talk show. For some, it's just, hey, riff on these topics. For some, it's an AMA or a question and answer show, right? There's so many different options. Someone's bringing guests on live and having them ask questions to the host. Like there's so many options. We want to put people in the best position for them and then handle the entire process.
I think live is huge. I want to do live too.
Yep.
I want to do all that stuff. So I'm going to need, so can you beta test all of this on me, like all at the same time?
Yes, sir. You got it. Okay. You got it. Okay, it's cool. Happening.
So I got video recorded confirmation caught in 4K. I get to be the beta test on all of this. All right, I'm going to throw a curveball to you. Derrik doesn't know that I'm doing this, but it'll be good content and it'll make a good reel. I should have done it at the beginning, but whatever. So what are your top 5 business softwares right now that you love? But we're going to do a draft. So I'll let you have first draft pick, and we will see who has the best tech stack at the end. So any technology that you use that other people would more than likely use, and we'll go from there.
Number 1 is Discord. By far. It's free. My entire team lives in Discord. It's like Slack, but better because it's free.
Okay, Discord. I'm going to go Loom, number 1.
Oh, I didn't think of Loom. I've already lost. Loom is
Sneaky,
so good.
Bro. Loom is like Loom so is good. Like the Michael Jordan of communication tools, because you can use it in every single platform. You can see if the person's watching it. You can use it in sales. You can use it internally.
So
you
good.
can put documentation in it. You show your screen, and you can have links, and people can click out, and there's analytics on it. Loom. If you don't use Loom, you need to use Loom. So I wanted to snag that one. All right, what's your second pick?
Man, I don't use that many softwares, but I mean, if I had to pick one, probably Notion. I use it every day. My team usually doesn't use it, but I use it every day.
So walk through how you use Discord and how you use Notion.
Yeah, Discord's where the team lives. It's like our Slack, but it's free. So the whole team lives in it. We have a server where we communicate in there. Everybody talks in there, and that's where our communication hub is. Yeah. And then Notion is basically like my second brain. I have all my tasks in there, all my to-do lists. I have a notepad, and I just jot everything down that I have to do, and I go through it day by day. It's where I script out like messages I'm going to send and stuff like that. It's basically like a second brain.
Got it. Okay, my second pick is going to be Google Calendar.
Oh, that's huge. Calendars are huge. Yeah, that's a good pick.
If you don't use Google Calendar, I don't.
Yep.
I can't even use Apple Calendar. I can't use any of those other calendars. Actually, you know what I'll do is I'll send in a picture of my calendar and what it looks like, and at the end of this, and pop it up here. So I do everything. My whole day is on my calendar, every single meeting, but also every single task that I have, including checking my email. So I've moved out of all my other project management softwares, and everything's in my Google Calendar. And the only reason I didn't pick that number 1 is because I didn't want to lose the Loom.
Well, I mean, my third would have to be Slack. Basic answer, but I do all client communications there. It's like $6 a month per person. It's super cheap, and I do all my communications through Slack.
Stink. I was going to take that one. I didn't think you would take it plus Discord. So Discord, we actually use Slack and Discord. Slack inside of SMC, and then our other company that's kind of integrated with SMC. They're younger and much more tech driven. They use Discord and they love it. All right, so I'm going to go Gmail then. I have to have Gmail.
Yep. No, it's a solid pick. Solid pick for sure. What is this, number 4 for me, right? I think.
Yep, number 4. So so far you have Discord, Notion, Slack.
Is it cheating for me to say TikTok? Is that a cheat? Does that count?
Do you use it as a software?
No, that's just where we post all of our stuff. I honestly don't know. I don't use any other. I mean, ClickUp, maybe that's like the only other software.
Yeah, ClickUp's a good one. That's actually I was going to take that at the end there. ClickUp. I don't use ClickUp that much. So how does ClickUp vary from Notion then? Why do you use both of those?
Oh yeah, a Notion's just for me. ClickUp is for the team. Yeah, ClickUp is where all of our SOPs live and stuff like that. And Notion is kind of just my second brain.
Got it. Okay. That's hard because I was going to pick Slack there, and then I was going to pick ClickUp. So I'm going to go, what do I use every day? I'm going to go Riverside then.
Riverside's a good one. That's a solid pick. Solid pick. Hey, listen, my last one, I can't believe I didn't put it in first, and I just realized it. I'm looking at it right on my screen right now. Premiere Pro. We literally run our business on it. We edit everything there, so that's got to be in.
Premiere Pro. That's good. Okay, you're looking at that. I'm going to pull mine up and look at my softwares that I use. What do we use every single day? Let's see here. This doesn't make for good content. I should have had this ready to go. I already got Google Calendar. I got all my communication stuff here. You know what? Actually, I'm going to go Zoom because I use Zoom every day for every single meeting. So
solid. Zoom is a solid pick.
All right. So we'll flash those up here. You guys let us know. Who do you think won that? Who do you think has the better tech stack after that conversation? All right. So, Derrik, so where do you think, what's your 5-year goal for your company? Where are you going to think you're going to be in 5 years?
Man, I would be lying if I gave you an answer. The answer to that is I have no idea. I literally don't know. All I know is that I know of by an age where I'm going to be, how exactly I'm going to get there.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I read the book Think and Grow Rich like 3 years ago. And that book was very transformative in my life. In fact, fun fact, a lot of people think that, I believe his name was Napoleon Hill, who wrote it, was a scam artist, that he sold courses and that he was a complete scam artist. I looked into these claims. Do they have merit? Yeah, but I didn't choose to believe it. Well, yeah.
I thought you were going to be like, no,
No.
He's
If
a
you
totally legit guy. You're like,
you,
no, he's a total scam artist. But
no. I'm not saying he's a scam artist, but if you objectively look at the facts, he did sell a lot of courses and a lot of bad reviews on those courses. But that does not just concede the fact that when I read his book, it changed my life. Because the bottom line is, if you can read between the lines, you'll realize that the whole point of the book is to overemphasize in a personified in a fictional way the power of the mind. That's literally the whole point. And so whatever you think, you can create, because it all starts with how you react to things and how you emotionally perceive things. That changed my life. And what it told me in the book in the first page is to write down a statement. It said, hey, what are you going to do? What do you want to accomplish? How are you going to get there? And you have to visualize it, because how can you get there if you don't visualize it? That made so much sense. That changed my life. Like, how could you get an A on a test if you don't understand and visualize how you're going to get to that A, right? You're not going to be able to do it. You're just going to go in there blind and not know what to do. So I came to the conclusion, and I wrote down that by age 45, I want to be worth $500 million. How I'm going to get there, not super clear. Stumbled on this, and I'm having a blast, and I'm going to keep doing this every day until I'm not having fun anymore. So 5 years.
So $500 million with inflation by that time will be worth probably 100,000 now. I'm just joking with you.
I hope not. This will all be for nothing.
Well, here's the thing, Derek. I'm 40 years old. When I was a kid, when I was your age, okay, being like a millionaire was like, I don't know if we can do that, right? Like, we didn't know. I didn't know. I maybe knew one millionaire, right? Like, we didn't know millionaires. There was nobody around that was a millionaire. That now you just buy a house in Southern California and you're a millionaire, right? Like, it's being a millionaire is not a big deal anymore. It's not a big goal. It's like not hard to do from a business standpoint. So, it's interesting how the things shift. Now you have people talking about being trillionaires. Like, who's going to be the next first trillionaire? And so it's interesting how those goals shift. So I personally love how big that goal is. And what age do you want to reach it by?
45. For me, it's $1 million by 35. I think I'm going to smash it way sooner. And then 45 is 500 million. I think I'm going to smash that way sooner too. But that's just my numbers. Like, hey, I want to hit that by that time. And
do you want it to be like liquid? Do you want it to be?
I want 500 liquid, right? I want to have 500 liquid.
See, that's different. That's way harder to do.
Yeah.
So you have to generate a lot of free capital that you aren't investing back into a business or investing somewhere else.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whether that's from a company sale, whether it's company sale, or whether it's like a portfolio of real estate worth $1 billion with like 300 in equity, like stuff like that, growing that type of stuff. I want to know that, either liquid on paper, if I sold everything, I'm worth $500,000, and or I have, that type of stuff.
Oh, okay. That's totally doable.
I would never have 500 million in the bank. I think that's the stupidest thing anybody could do. Yeah, I would never.
That's what I meant by liquid.
It's
just the money's sitting in the bank, and then you have access to it, which means you have way more assets, right? But that totally makes sense.
Yes.
And where now I want to go more into like your specialty of like editing videos and things like that. Where do you kind of let's just tell the story really quickly. Before about a year ago, when I went online to look for video editors to do shorts, there was nobody. Like, there was people who said I would do it, but they couldn't actually do it. And there was very, very hard to find video editors. I'd post about it. I would email people. I looked everywhere, and it was really hard to find people. So now I get hit up at least once a week. Hey, we can edit your videos. Hey, we can make things better. Hey, we can do this. We can do that. So we've seen a massive shift there.
Yep.
So I would love for you to touch on that shift that we've seen. And then next, where's that going? Like, what's the next thing coming?
Well, Gary, if I knew what the next thing coming was, then I would already be worth $500 million. So I can't really answer that question. But what I think is going to happen, right? I think it's very natural. This was an opportunity that not a lot of people saw before. And then as people were noticing it more and more and more, and people like me started saying online, look at what I'm doing, and get it more public about it, a lot more people realized, hey, I can do this too. But I think what's going to happen, honestly, is that people are going to price themselves out of the market, either too expensive or too cheap, because there's a balance there. You can be too cheap and people won't want to work with you, right? Because they look at your services and say, hey, I don't find any value. Like, I don't want to pay you $200 a month. How do I know you're going to do what I want? But you can also be too expensive, where if you come in saying, I want $5,000 a month, people are going to say, whoa, That's the cost of a full-time employee. Why would I invest $5,000 a month with you, right? So it really, there's a value discrepancy there that people think they have, like, that you really have to nail. And that's where I think our sweet spot is in our ability to really effectively, especially bundling. A lot of our clients bring us multiple shows. You're one of those clients. And so when you do that, we're able to significantly bring down the average cost per show you're investing with us, to save you a ton of money. Or even if you hired a full-time employee, the full-time employee would not be able to do the sheer amount of work that we do at the level that we do it at the same price. You'd probably have to invest more or hire two people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do I think it's going? I think that a lot of people are going to start agencies similar to what I'm doing now. And if we don't evolve, as in my agency doesn't evolve, which is what we're in the process of doing, we will die, because we will get priced out. We will not grow, and we won't be innovating. And that's going to instantly kill us, right? One of our company whys is never satisfied, or values is never satisfied. So the second we stop growing, I always tell my team, the second we stop growing is the day we start dying. And I'm not going to let that happen for anybody on the team or for the company.
Yeah, I love that. So always innovating. You got to create that culture. It's really, really important. You can't let people get comfortable. One of the things that I realized was our company wide is always growing. And when I started to break that down, I started to realize that I actually not only had to tell people that, but I had to explain what that felt like emotionally. So two elements that we came up with was, number one, always growing means you're uncomfortable. If you're comfortable, if you're like, nah, we're good, you're not growing. You're actually in neutral, and then you're going to start going backwards soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two is there has to be a level of urgency. If you don't have any urgency, if you're just uncomfortable and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to get used to this water that I'm being boiled in, and it's kind of like a jacuzzi, so I'm good. If that's your attitude, then you're not going to grow. Urgency has to be added onto it, because what I realized is I could set a goal. And if I go, yeah, before my life is over, this is my goal, we're all comfortable doing that, right? Now, anybody will set a goal, a big goal, because, yeah, I got all this time. But when I say, okay, what are we going to get done in the next 2 months, or in the next month, or in the next week? That's what pushes us into that uncomfortable zone. And then that's what creates that urgency, and that's what creates growth. So I love always innovating. I think you're absolutely right. If you're not always innovating, if you don't have that, then your company absolutely will die.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I actually, that's really valuable advice, because you just took it to another level that I have to now take it to, which is like, yeah, I'm telling people never satisfied, but I'm not explaining how that feels, how that looks, and how to tactically do that. So that's my next step here, is really getting more culture buy-in and fixing my team, infrastructure, really having people understand, like, listen, and you know this, we spoke yesterday, I'm paying the price for this now. I didn't do the good job of this the last 6 months. And now clients are coming to me saying, hey, why are we not innovating? We got comfortable. We got into neutral. We slowly started to, stop growing. Clients started to churn because of it. And now I'm in the process of paying the price for that. And yeah.
Yeah. So let's walk through that. What is always innovating feel like?
Yeah. So when you boil it down, what I'm working through with the team, right, tactically, and for anybody listening who can actually implement this for themselves, is we look at it on a month-to-month and a week-to-week basis. So for us, it's a lot of video editing stuff. So I'm always like, guys, now moving forward, you have to be changing things ever so slightly every month and communicating those changes to me and anybody else who is client-facing, because then it falls on me and anybody else client-facing to communicate to clients, hey, look at the changes we're making. This never keeps things stale, right? It keeps things constantly growing, constantly innovating. And even if it's a subtle change, like changing up the captions, which takes us virtually no time, on the client side of things, that's a big change. It's a huge visual change right off the bat. And that's the type of innovation that we need. It's subtle, but effective at keeping the clients happy, generating results, and actually constantly improving and getting better, and showing that we're taking the initiative to do that.
That's awesome. I love that. And then you said that, so clients always want to feel like you're innovating for them, right? And I think every marketing company falls into this. It doesn't matter what results that you have. So I've had clients that we've provided bang up results, like millions of dollars in profit and return on investment, and just crazy numbers that I'm like, they're not going to be able to beat this anywhere. They still left, right? Like, because, and I think what it really boils down to is, it's not just the value you bring, but it's the value you articulate, and then that you keep in front of them on a regular basis. And so often we want to create a business that doesn't have to interact with people, right? And it's just like, oh, we'll just send an email, or I'll send a monthly report, I'll send something like that. And this is for us. We used to do this, right? We'd send a monthly email or a monthly report, and it was like, it didn't work. Like they didn't consume it. They didn't understand it. They didn't see the value in it. And we were constantly having to reframe, recategorize. And because it's marketing, they always want the next best thing. They always want it. So you have to do that. Marketing is really fun because you can come as a company and say, hey, you should look at your marketing. And most people will consider it because it is a fun conversation. It's not like operations. Hey, do you want to change your business operations? That's not fun. That's not, no one wants to have that conversation. And so that's an advantage that we have, but it's also a risk that we have as marketing agencies, is that anybody can break that veil and go into your clients and get in their ear and say, I could do this differently. I could do this better. And they're doing that every single day. So you have to position yourself against that.
Yeah, no, when you taught me this, actually, because I didn't believe it at first. You first kind of explained this to me many months ago when we first started 8-Figure Agency Show. And you even told me, I think at the time, you told me a story of losing a 90,000 per month client. And this was a client you told us on the show that you were crushing. And then, they just left and they wanted to leave super quick. So it really blindsided you and your team. For me, I've had the same thing happen this month. We thought we were crushing it. And out of nowhere, this client, after 6 months of work, wanted to cancel, right? And that happened twice this month. And, you really have to look and say, hey, why is this happening? And that really opened my eyes to, wait a minute, we've gotten complacent with clips. Like, we're doing millions of views a month. We're doing thousands of new followers. We're driving a lot of traffic, but the clips have looked the same for 6 months. We haven't even done something as simple as changing the captions, let alone communicating to them how we're constantly innovating.
Yeah.
So now looking back, I'm like, wait a minute, if we were just to do something so simple, like seriously, captions, it's one button in Premiere Pro, take maybe an extra 30 minutes. To them, that's like, oh my God, look at this team, and they're always trying to innovate. Yeah. They're always trying to do better. They have me in my, in focus, that type of stuff. That's what we're working on now.
Yeah. And if you don't do that for the people who are early on, I guarantee you're going to lose clients. It doesn't matter what you bring to the table. Yep. Your value always has to be re-articulated, and it always has to be reskinned in the marketing world, in the digital, especially in the digital marketing world. You have to constantly reskin it, revalue it. And a lot of times, again, we think like, man, I want to build a company like Chipotle, right? So someone orders on an app and then they just walk in and pick it up, and then, or Uber Eats just drops it off at their house. That's fine, and you can do that. But the problem with that is that Chipotle has to wait around for their customers until they want it. Yep. You want to build something that's recurring, that somebody's paying you every month. That raises the responsibility of your innovation that you're offering to them. It's not about the consistency, right? The consistency still needs to be there. Chipotle provides the consistency. You always know what you're going to get from them, right? And you always know how much it's going to cost. But now you're saying, well, I want you to come every month though. Well, if Chipotle said, Gary, you can join my membership and you can get Chipotle every single day, I don't know if I'd sign up with that, because I don't want Chipotle every single day, right?
Yep.
I want other things. I want to try other things. So if as a marketing agency, it's really important that we understand that, okay, yes, we need to provide consistency. For me, it's new patients. For you, it's delivering the clips on time and making sure that they get views. But then there's how am I going to innovate? How am I going to make sure that they understand that I'm bringing more value every month or two at least?
Yeah, one thing I've learned that really relates to all this, Gary, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what business you're running, you're in the people business. This is what I've really come to learn. Yeah. So, and 99% of the time, you're not even selling what you actually think you're selling. You're selling a feeling, you're selling a result, you're selling a destination, but you always have to remember who you're selling it to. Because bottom line is, if you can't speak to a specific type of person, you're not going to win, no matter how good your product or service is. So that's something that I've really learned. Like in the Chipotle example in Uber Eats, the reason they do so well, aside from their product being really good, and even Chipotle, they're expensive, and Uber Eats is expensive. They still make a killing. It's because they're able to play well in the people business. They understood that, hey, a lot of people don't care who they're speaking to. They want to go to the restaurant, pick up their food, and leave. They don't want to speak to anybody. They don't want to be interacted with. They're speaking to a part of the market, and they're crushing it. Uber Eats, the same thing. They realize they're in the people business. A lot of people don't want to leave their house. They're willing to pay an extra $5 to deliver their food. So they satisfy that need, and they deliver that desire of not having to go anywhere for an extra $5.
Yeah, 100%. And I think even taking that a little bit deeper is, a lot of people will start a business and they're great at doing the video editing or the dental marketing, and they're great at even talking and selling that to people. So that's a people business, but they don't realize that's a transactional relationship, where then they go to their team, and that's not a transactional relationship. That is an entrenched relationship that you're meeting with every single day. You're around them all the time. And you can't use sales tactics, right? You can't be like, how am I gonna present this, or how am I gonna say this? You have to be real. You have to be able to connect with them. And if you don't figure that part out, then you can't grow as an agency either. So just going full circle, everything's about people. Everything that you do is about people, and you have to figure out each step of the way. First, who you are, then who your client is, and then who your team is.
Yeah. And one thing I'll add to that, right? The second my company started growing is the second I stopped focusing on selling and started focusing on helping and providing value. So, and look, I want to be super clear. There's a balance to that, right? So I don't want people to hear this and think, oh, I'm just going to stop trying to sell. That's not what I'm saying at all, because there's an art to selling. It truly is. And you have to position in a way where you lead with value first, and you're there to help people, but you have to be paid to do that. That's the whole point. That's why there's selling tactics and closing tactics and books and all this. But what I learned is that you have to lead with value first. And the second that I walked into any sales meeting with that mindset, I walk out with, feeling perfectly fine, whether it's a yay or nay. I know that I'm going into that meeting with the mindset of I'm trying to help them do what's best for them and make a decision. So for me, a failed meeting, right, and a failed interaction with a prospect is them leaving saying I have to think about it and not being clear on what they're going to go think about. Right? That kind of stuff. I want them to feel confident enough in the information I gave them to make a decision, even if that's saying no to us. All I want is a decision, and I want to guide them in the right direction. And if I know that working with us is the best fit for them, if they have the budget, if they have the time, if their back end is set up to work with us well, I'm going to push them in that direction in a most respectful manner possible and sell them on those services and overcome those objectives. But at the end of the day, the balance I'm referring to is it's business, right? You have to get the money. There's a saying in Russian that my dad taught me, and it's called "Stulye вечером" or "Деньги утром, стулья вечером." So the literal translation to that is money in the morning and chairs at night. So what that means is anytime you're doing business with somebody, you always get the money first, and you can deliver on product later. That's how I'm a big believer in that, because the person with the money always has the leverage. And I'm not saying that in a malicious way whatsoever.
No. You're right though.
At all.
Yeah.
If you have the money, you have the leverage in business, period. And that's,
I think that saying is like, it would work really well in entrepreneurship, because a lot of people want to build the perfect agency before they get their first client. And it's like, that's not how it works. You're not going to be able to figure it out. Yeah, you're not going to be able to even get feedback. So this has been really good, man. Super, super informative. How can people connect with you if they want to learn more about your agency?
Yeah, of course. Number one, definitely check me out on TikTok at Derrik Mirochnik. I'm sure my team's putting it up here. And check out our show, 8-Figure Agency Show, as well. I'm sure it'll be linked in the description as well. And that's basically it. I'm on Instagram at first and last name Derrik Mirochnik. TikTok as well. Put out content there. And 8-Figure Agency Show. And you go to Mirrormediamarketing.com too. That's our website.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for coming on today. This was really fun.
This was a blast. Thank you for having me, Gary.